Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi my dear learners. So this is Saiful Islam, an assistant teacher of our high school of Bangladesh, and you are most welcome in my Saiful English Academy learners. Hope that you are very fine by the grace of Almighty Allah and watch my previous classes smartly as well as continue with me and with the reference of my previous classes. Today's class I have been present in front of you with an words mentioning class named simple to complex to compound sentence of changing sentence of sending sentence with the reference of my previous classes. My dear learners, of course, you know that in my previous classes of changing sentence from simple to complex to compound, in rule number one, you are told that about connection among rule number one with learners. The connection was that by President is equal to if you is equal to and okay, my dear learners, in row number one, the connection was that my dear learners with you were told, my dear learners, without plus Jiran is equal to if you don't is equal to or in rule number three was that Magellan's present participle is equal to and is equal to and in rule number four the connection was that Magellan's because of is equal to since oblique as age equal to and so majorness and with the reference these four categories of class to discuss have been present in front of you with an investment plus in spite of or despite is equal to though oblique although is equal to but of course you know that my dear learners by plus jiran without plus jiran present participle because of are used in a simple sentence if you don't find sentences are used in a complex sentence and so are used in a compound sentence and with the reference of my previous classes about changing sentence from simple to complex to compound. In this class I have been present in front of you with the new argument and new class. So, my dear, let's take a look at the board and try to understand. In spite of my being ill, I I'm sure is full. Okay, my dear learners, before solving this problem, you have to mind that, my dear learners, there are great connections among these three items. So, in which offer this which doubly called and but three categories of words can be used in different sentences. In which of this which is used in a simple sentence. Though oblique although is used in a complex sentence and but is used in a complex sentence. And to make you understand, better understand my dear learners, I have written an example in the board, my dear learners. So take a look at the board and try to understand. In spite of my being ill, I chose full. Take a look at the board and try to understand what category of sentence. My dear learners, so we can see that this sentence has a principal clause, and uh, right, right. So, my dear learners, according to your definition, of course, this sentence is a simple sentence, and suppose you are trying to change suspense of sentence into a complex sentence. Complex sentence. So, my dear learners, what strategies should you take to change suspense of statement or simple sentence into a complex sentence? Of course, you know that, my dear learners, from my previous classes, so there are a subordinate clause and a principal clause in a complex sentence, my dear learners. There is no any change of principal clause. There is no any change of principal clause. In this case, you will have to change this phrase into a subordinate clause. Subordinate clause. So, my dear learners, of course, you know the precondition of subordinate clause. The precondition of a subordinate clause is that, my dear learners, at first you'll have to use subordinating conjunction. You'll have to mind that, my dear learners, in this case, subordinate conjunction, though oblique, although is used beginning of the statement. Okay, my dear learners, write though oblique, although. Then subject. Of course, you know that, my dear learner, there is no any subject in a phrase, and in this case, you'll have to bring the subject from the principal clause. Subject of principal clause, of course, I. So, my dear learners, write subject I, then finite verb. Yeah, of course, you know that there is no any finite verb in a phrase, rather than there is a non-finite verb in a phrase. Suppose in this case, non-finite verb being, and you'll have to change this non-finite verb into a finite verb. Delete your ing, then and this verb must be changed into a finite verb. Of course, you know that, my dear learners, words be am, eat, watch, fire. These five categories of auxiliary verb are called and these five categories of auxiliary verb has to form V1, major, V2, watch, fire, and you'll have to use V1 or V2 form according to a verb or principal clause. Of course, V2 form of verb is used in a simple principal clause. So, major learners, we had better write down the V2 form of verb of being was oblique, fire. So, write was after subject, then extension of this price, then use comma, and now write the principal clause I show is cool. Okay, Medina, so I hope that you have understood clearly. You can look at the board and try to understand. So, this sentence must be changed into a complex sentence because there is a subordinate clause and a principal clause in a simple complex sentence. Hope that you have understood clearly. Media learners, now suppose you are told to change again substance sentence into compound sentence. So, my dear learners, what strategy should you take in this case? Of course, you know that, my dear learners, in a compound sentence, there are two principal clauses. There are two principal clause mixed with coordinating conjunction. So, major learners, already a principal clause has in this sentence. So, major learners, in this case, you'll have to change the phrase into a principal clause. Into a principal clause. So, major learners, what's the precondition of a principal clause? Of course, you know. My dear learners, the precondition of a principal clause is that at first you have to use or write subject. Of course, you know that there is no any subject of phrase, but you will have to bring the subject from the principal clause. Here, subject of principal clause, of course, I. Okay, then you'll have to use finite verb. Of course, you know that there is no finite verb in a phrase, but there is a non-finite verb being, my dear learners, now change this non-finite verb into phrase, delete ing, then the rest of the verb be B, of course, words. Of course, you know that amateur, warrior, and cult. B, and five categories: amateur, warrior. Five categories: auxiliary verb are called B. And now try to use what's verb of verb V1 or V2. It defends to the verb of principal clause. Principal clause. This principal clause has V2 form of verb oint. So you'll have to use V2 form of verb of be, watch, oint. So with Jalanas, it was extension of this phrase kill. Okay, my dear learners, now take a look at the word and try to understand this phrase must be changed into a French words. Okay, my dear learners, and it is a catch middle of the statement. Instead of comma, you have to use but, then write the principal clause. I, oin, show, is cool. Okay, my dear, let's take a look at the board and try to understand. This sentence must be changed into a compound sentence because this sentence has two principal clauses. Two principal clauses joined together by coordinate conjunction, but coordinate conjunction, but hope that you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now I'm trying to write another example to make you understand. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Rohim watch Hajj, but he failed in the exam. Okay, my dearness, hope that you have understood clearly. This sentence, of course, a compound sentence because this sentence has two principal clauses joined together by coordinate conjunction. But suppose, my dearness, your child to change this statement into a complex sentence. So, my dear listeners, what strategy should I try to change such kinds of statement into a complex sentence? You'll have to mind that, my dear learners, if any compound sentence is mixed with but at the time of changing such kinds of statement into a complex sentence, you'll have to delete but and use the comma middle of the statement, but you'll have to use first beginning of the statement, though like other about that you have understood clearly. So, my dear, let's start writing the answer. The Rohim White had failed in the exam. Take a look at the board and try to understand this sentence must be changed into a complex sentence because this sentence has one principal clause and one subordinate clause that you have understood clearly. Major learners, suppose your child to change this types of sentence into a simple. So in this case, what strategy should you try, major learners? You have to mind that, my dear learners, in a simple sentence, there is only a principal clause and a phrase remains. But so in this case, my dear learners, you'll have to use principal clause on sensible situation, but you'll have to change the first principal clause into phrase. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. But in this sketch, at the time of changing such kinds of principal clause into a phrase, you have to use at first the beginning of the statements in spite of or despite. In spite of, then say form the subject here subject Rohim and possessive form of subject Rohims. Then verb ng of the verb gender verb work and ng working hard Middle of the statement, use comma instead of but. Then write the second principal clause here in the exam. Okay, maybe let's take a look at the board and try to understand. So, this sentence, of course, must be changed into a simple sentence because this sentence has a principal clause and has a phrase. Has a phrase of that you have understood clearly. So, maybe let's. I'm trying to write another example to make you understand. So, my dear learners, take a look at the board and try to understand. Though I was ill, I went to the school. Okay, maybe let's check you look at the board and try to understand what category of this sentence. Of course, it's a complex sentence because this sentence has a principal clause has and subordinate clause, and we are charged to change this sentence into a compound sentence. So, maybe let's what strategy should I try to change such kinds of statement into a complex sentence? Mind you that, my dear learners, in this sketch, you'll have to, it's a very easy rule. You know, at the time of changing such kinds of statement into a compound sentence, you'll have to delete though, and you have to use the but middle of the statement of the you have understood clearly. I was ill, but I went to school. Okay, dear learners, about the draw, you have understood clearly. My dear learners, now it's supposed to be a chart to change the sentence into a simple sentence. So, in this case, your what strategy should you try? My dear learners, you have to mind that there is a principal clause and a phrase in a simple sentence. So, there is no change of principal clause. In this case, you'll have to change the subordinate clause into a phrase. But at the time of making the phrase from the subordinate clause, you'll have to use at first being of the statement in spite of, instead of though, instead of though. Then passive form of subject, my finite verb being extension of this clause ill, then principal clause. I went through school. Okay, major notes. Already this sentence must be changed into a principal clause. Yes, simple sentence because this sentence has a principal clause and phrase of the job. You have understood clearly. Major notes. Before finishing today's class, I want to suggest you that major learners there is a good connections among in spite of, but, though, or no. Okay, my dear learners, of the you have understood clearly. My dear learners, I don't want to learn the first class, but I want to share some experience with you, my dear learners. Of course, you know that I'm a new teacher or a new teacher or a new teacher, and I'm trying to use English conversation at the time of making various kinds of video classes. So, my dear learners, if you notice any faults or mistakes in the midst of my video class, please excuse me and pray to our mentally so that I can help you in this way through my video classes throughout my life. So many learners now much today. Got to say again with our new art, not any class. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi